Hello, Professor.
Hey there, how you doing?
Good, thank you. And you?
I'm okay. I'm okay. Hey, Ahmad.
Hey, Professor, how you doing?
I'm okay. How you doing?
Good, good, thank you.
Excellent.
Professor, you look so
Hello.
serious.
Do I look serious? I'll tell you when everyone's here, but my dean, my boss she's going to come here to observe today's class for tenure review. So I'm being judged today. So I don't feel serious, but you know, I'm still going to be myself, but I know other people will be here. So I'm trying not to be nervous.
You'll be
Who's the head
fine.
of department?
Say what, Ahmad?
Who's the head of department? Who's coming?
Her name's Diana Hicks. She's the Dean of Humanities. So that's foreign languages, ESL, history, philosophy, and a few other departments. She's wonderful. I know it's going to be fine, but you know, it's just normal, I think, for people to get nervous when they're being observed. Thank you, Jay, for telling me the truth, though. Jay's like, you look very serious. Plus, Jay knows I was up too
Hello.
late. I was up too late
Yeah.
last night. Get away. Ooh, that sounded nice. How are you guys?
Good. How are you?
I'm okay. I'll tell everybody when everyone's here. Here, or I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but here, you look very nice. You look very professional. You look.
Do you see that I had a video conference today, huh?
Did you? Yeah, yeah. It's weird. I don't want to comment on other people's clothes, but I was like, oh, Hiroi looks very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that because, as you said, it's interesting in USA. No one says it. You know, it's so funny.
I think especially for this moment in time, I think there's a desire. People want to make sure they're respectful, especially for men to women. I think I think that's the good intention. But yeah, it is weird, right?
It's for me strange because I come from the other culture, like people hugging each other and you know kissing on the cheek, and here's like okay, keep the distance.
I know, yeah. Don't get too personal.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so weird.
I know, it's weird.
Maybe topic for the next essay.
You can write a poem about it, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I see your dog. I didn't know you had a dog. I can see a dog in the background.
Oh my God! Yes, yes, we have two.
Oh wow.
We are getting smaller and smaller here. This team.
I know. But I will say it feels weird when I see people less, but people are still doing the work in Canvas. And I was, like I was saying to Jay last night, I was reading people's drafts and stuff last night. I'm so happy. I think some of your essays are just so, I'm so excited. It's my favorite. You know, I hate grading Canvas quizzes. It's so stupid. But when I get to sit with your reading, it's really a joy. So I'm very excited to get to read your work.
And you really enjoy reading too, right? You really love reading.
I do.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, I think it's weird because I think students feel the most pressure and stress for a grade for essays, but I feel like the longer essays, I don't know what to say. I don't, the grade isn't as important to me, but I feel like in Canvas quizzes, I have to make, you know, like busy work and it has to be about points. These bigger essays, I feel like, for me, I believe that's where writing really happens, you know, so.
Yes, yes. I agree.
I'm still thinking about it for next semester. I was talking to another colleague. I was like, maybe I just do like no Canvas quizzes. She was like, but if you don't do Canvas quizzes, no one will read anything. They won't watch any videos. Like, unless there's points, students will do it. And I was like, I don't know. Interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, also we need to fulfill the requirement, right? This is maybe the major point why we have to do it. Yeah.
Maybe
okay.
I could, but we could do like 4 essays and they could be like 90% of your grade. I don't know. I don't know.
But let us make suggestions. You should read all assigned books.
That's well, and then but my friend, my colleague was saying, Jeff, like, would you do the reading if there wasn't a quiz? And I was like, yes, but I'm weird. I know, like I was at, you know, I've been in school I was in grad school for like 8 years and then I've been teaching for 7 years. So like, I love this. And I know not everybody is like that, you know, so.
Yeah. But for example, I'm learning through listening to your reading the rhythm in the essay. This is really nice. If you write, then I remember how you read stuff, and then there's a certain rhythm in it. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, it's caught my attention. Thank you.
I'm really happy to hear that. That's my goal, right? Is like with the online stuff too, everything is so different. So one way I was thinking is to give you all the chance to listen to some of these things from a native speaker and just learn in different ways. Since we're all learning and teaching in different ways, I'm glad that it works for you, Hiro. That makes me feel good.
It does. Thank you so much. Okay, I didn't want to hijack the class.
No, we're good. No, not hijacked. We'll just like usual, we'll give people a few more minutes and then I'll share my screen now. We're here, week 8. We're halfway through, you guys. Halfway through.
All of the classes starts this week too.
Yeah, some classes do start this week. I think everyone's. Are you guys tired? How you doing?
So.
I just want the election to be over. I am just. I think America is exhausted, and I can't wait for it to be over. I know I'm exhausted.
Yeah, I stopped watching news. It's just devastating and disappointing and confusing.
I agree, Hiro, and I agree. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much.
Yep.
I'd rather read your essays.
Yeah, it's very true. More poem.
Well, wait, and we're gonna when we start to talk next week, we'll get to talk about poetry. I do want to finish the last thing about the narrative essay and look at some examples, because I think examples are very good when you are done. I think sometimes examples before the first draft, people feel like they have to follow that example, but I think after the first draft and before you start to revise, I think it's very good to see other examples. So, but yeah, next week we'll get poetry. Next week we'll get poetry, and I'm very excited for that. Okay, I'll close this. Cool. Well, maybe this is who we've got today, and that's all good. Let me see. I saw a few people, but Zaki is here, or Fada's here, and Hadi, Natasha, and Natalia. Olga, good to see you, hear you, do your thing, you know, just chill. Ahmad, Hiroe, good to see you as always. Jay, I hear your voice. Good to hear you. So I'll tell you sort of what we're doing today. Today we'll do our check-in just like usual in our small groups. Then today I'm really going to call this kind of a writing workshop day. You guys aren't going to have to write, but like I said, we are going to look at some examples so that as you think about this essay that you just finished and that I'm going to spend some time grading, and then of course you get the chance if you want to revise, resubmit for a higher score. I think that's why it's important to look at some more student examples. Then if we do have time, I'm going to see how it goes. I'll start to introduce poetry because we are going to really jump in next week. But if we don't have time, then I'll just sort of tell you where to go in Canvas to start watching some of the videos and readings that'll get you ready for poems next week. But as I said to a few people before, oh, hold on. Announcement first. Like I said to a few people, I think Jay and Hiroe were some of the only people here. So here's the announcement. So my boss will be here to observe today's class. Her name is Dean Diana Hicks. Like I said to Ahmad, she's the Dean for Humanities. So in Humanities, that's us in ESL, foreign languages, Italian, Spanish, Russian, history, philosophy, and I think there's one other
German.
German's in foreign languages. Well, we have communications. So if you take a public speaking class, so she runs all of those departments. She's here to watch me and not to watch you. Later in this semester, she might ask you guys to answer some questions or fill out an evaluation for your opinions about this class and about my job as your teacher. And as I tell all my students, all I want you to do is be yourselves and tell the truth. So for this level class, I'm not worried about you guys at all. But when Diana joins in, yeah, she's here to watch me and not to watch you. So make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. And I'll just try to be I am going to be my normal self, but like Jay said, maybe I'll be a little nervous. That's it.
So serious today.
Welcome to our club.
It's because I like my job and I want to keep my job. I know, but I'm going to give you an A. Like if you, I mean, most of you are going to get an A if you do the work. And most people will get, you know, if you, Diana, Dean Hicks was sort of saying, you have to try to get a bad review. You know what I mean? Like if you're a teacher and you care and you're making your best effort, usually it's okay. And I definitely do care. So we'll just do our best.
We will. We will.
Breathe, Professor, breathe.
Thanks, Jay. It's good. Now you guys can tell me all the things I tell you. So here's the check-in, just to put you in small groups so that you get to talk to each other. I think I'll just do 2 big groups today since we have such a small group. First, how did you feel about the process for the linguistic narrative? What is something you learned from this process? And what is something that you still want to understand better? And then just like usual, whatever else you want to talk about, you are welcome to talk about in your groups. Any questions at all? Cool. Let me get the breakout rooms ready. We'll do just 2 rooms, 4 people each room. That's perfect. All right, you'll get your invitations now. Hey, Osama. We're going into small groups, but did you see late last night? Did you see that the essay, I sent you back your essay?
I just saw it now. Just now.
Perfect. So you can
I
you can use my comments for your second draft, Usama.
Okay. Am I in the right way or not?
Yeah, it's great. You can look at my comments. Actually, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to put you in small groups because we're just doing our warm up like usual. So I'll put you in a group, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the essay. But yeah, okay. I'm going to send you to room 2. Olga, Fada, you guys okay? Can you join or what?
So yes, Professor, but I need to take your time and talk with you. I don't know. So when you have time for, I mean,
One-on-one?
yeah, after the one-on-one. I don't know when now. So
Yeah, maybe how long? Like I could do maybe 5 or
no,
10
it's
minutes.
just for 5 or 10, 7 minutes, 5 minutes
Yeah,
maybe. So
so we finish at 2:15. Can we talk after class?
sure. Because yeah, because of my problem as this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
work and schedule and all that stuff.
Yeah. So now you're on record, but I will
Yeah.
talk with you and
Sounds
yeah. Okay.
sounds good.
Bye.
Sounds
I'll
good.
go join the
Perfect.
group.
I'll see you in a few minutes. Welcome back. People still talking. Were people still talking in your room with someone? All right, room 2 is back. Room 1 is coming. All right, welcome back, everybody. So here is my question for all of you guys. Now that you are back, let me make sure I can see my participants, and I want to make sure you can see my screen too. So I want to hear about anything you guys want to share, but what I'm really interested in hearing is what you guys talked about for this question about something that you still want to understand better, either something that your group talked about, or even just something that maybe you didn't share it with your group, but something that you feel. Because again, it's one thing for us to talk about this type of writing beforehand, right? And now you did it, right? Now you've done the first draft. So I'm just curious about this question and anything else you want to share. So I saw Usama lift his hand up, and then Natalia, and then Hiroe. So let's go Usama, and then Natalia, and then Hiroe. Usama, please.
Yes, I want to understand better the relationship between the narrative and the ideology and the theme. How to find the connections
Got it.
of those things.
Got it. Perfect. Great. Natalia?
Is there another way to do? Is there another way? Can the stories be without ideology? Related to different aspects?
Okay, and this is something specific for this assignment. So for our assignment, there is also this issue of, does the theme have to be connected to language ideology, themes that are different than language, maybe, than language or ideology. I'm gonna make this bigger so we can actually read it. Okay, anything else, Isama, before I hear from Natalia?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Perfect. Very well stated. Natalia, please get in there.
Yeah, hello. I have a question that was before even I remember that Hero, she asked you about the tense. Which tenses should we use in, because I was confused really. Sometimes I wanted to narrate in the simple present because I like feeling, okay, now I'm in my childhood, and okay, next I see like I was 4 years ago, and to narrate it in the way that I am here now in this. But how to, yeah, but if there are any rules, how to switch from one tense to another, or we'll see it after you will check my essay, for instance, then you can mark, like for example, here it would be better to use this tense and this tense. So
yeah,
nice, yeah.
So we're going to look at this, the writing workshop that I want to do for us today is looking at examples, like student examples, right? And I'll just say right now, that issue that you bring up is very important. So look for that in these student essays, because that's such a good question. And I wish I could tell you that there's one perfect rule for this, but because like we talked about this literary present, sometimes we use the present tense, sometimes we use the simple past. It's kind of one of those things that you just have to feel. And I think one thing that can help you feel it is to see more examples. So when we look at these student examples, Natalia, you will notice that. Keep your eye out for that topic, because that's a great question. Great. And anything else, Natalia, or I saw you muted yourself. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Perfect. And you can always type in the chat. I know you guys know that too, but Hiroe, and then I see Ahmad's hand too, but I saw Hiroe's hand first. So Hiroe and then Ahmad, tell me, what do we got?
I think Usama and Natalia have represented my questions or discussions. So great. Nothing. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, here was her questions have already been asked. Ahmad, what's up?
My question is, what is the best practice for writing the narrative essays or narrative papers using the catch? Is it okay to use it as a first person or as a third person to catch the reader attention?
Got it. Best practice, and I'm just going to say, yeah, what's the difference between using a first person or a third person narrative? Yeah, and again, part of that is for this assignment, I asked you to write in the first person. So that's okay. I can talk about that more. But the short answer is just making the reader have a personal connection, right? Because the reader is going to feel differently if you use the first person, right? The reader will have a different relationship to you and the narrative that you're writing if you use the first person versus if you use the third person. And again, yeah, all I'll say is, and maybe Ahmad, if you want to see examples, we could look at, like, I could give you some examples of third person narratives. And we're kind of see that when we start to read fiction. Do you know what I mean? Because when you read a novel, it is the third person. It's talking about other characters. So it really, instead of the writing process, like we've been talking about, the difference is really what the reader feels when they're reading the writing, if that makes sense. Yes. But we'll look at some more examples of this throughout the rest of the semester too. Hiroe, did you put your hand back up?
Yes, sir, I did. The Ahmed brought me to raise some more questions. So if I use the dialogues in the essay, is there any rule? You know, and I see sometimes some books use like italic, it's spelled in italic, and some are just putting in this, what do you call it in English?
Quotation marks.
Yeah, quotation marks.
Yeah.
Or sometimes if I like to use, I haven't, but if I use like a phrase from the song, and do I have to do the insight citing? You have to use a citing rule, or just put the song and the name, but then it took me out of the flow of the essay.
Generally, so again, the short answer, these are great questions, and I'm happy because I think what we're doing is we're sort of making a bridge, a connection between this type of writing and fiction, because Hiroe, you are right. In a short story, for example, you could say the lyrics to a song or the name of a song, and you're not expected to do an in-text citation, right? Because like you said, it's a different type of writing. And how to do dialogue in a short story or in a narrative is different than in poems, because when we see poems next week, you're going to see italics for the most part. Now, in a narrative, like some of the stories that we've read this semester, you do see things in quotes, right? You do say, I said, quotation mark, and then my mom said, quotation mark. So it really just depends. And again, I think one-on-one, if you have dialogue, I know I said to you or a few other students, for this narrative, if you wanted to write dialogue, go for it. Then I can give you feedback on what was good and what could be improved. But it kind of just depends on the type of writing and the style of writing. It definitely changes. So
that's great that there isn't. I like it because it's more flexible.
Exactly.
It should be flexible, and it's not math.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's why this class is great to take after 340, because if you took 340, you already learned the math part of college writing, right? You already learned MLA formatting. You already learned in-text citation. You already learned works cited, or at least you got introduced to it. Do you know what I mean? And that is, there's a rule, follow the rule. When we get to this kind of creative writing, yeah, there's a little more personal style as a part of it. I think I've told you guys a few times, I love this type of, this is just a random sentence. So this is just a weird example, but so I like to use all types of different punctuation, right? Commas and semicolons and stuff. This dash here is called a hyphen. And I think the type of writing the authors that I love to read and the way that I like to write, I use hyphens a lot. Maybe you see me do this in my emails sometimes. And again, I'm not telling you I follow every perfect hyphen rule, but when we start to talk about narrative writing and literary writing and poetry, you do get to play a little bit more. So I know for me, I use the hyphen too much for college academic writing, but you know, for kind of personal style, it's just kind of each author's choice.
But Professor Jeff, what I believe is, first you have to know all the rules. Once you know the rule, then you know
how to break it.
You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can be flexible, but you have to know the rules first.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in that, especially for you guys, because you guys are taking these classes because maybe you already have a master's degree in another language and you want to get an American college degree. So I totally agree here. It's important to learn the rules because when you go to UC Davis or UC Berkeley or wherever you're going to go, there is this expectation, right? So I agree. Learn the rules, break the rules. I mean, like I said, when we're gonna look at poetry. One reason I love poetry is you break I mean, all that matters is this is the only rule, right? Is emotion and feeling. So yeah, I agree with that here. Anything else about this before we start to do the writing workshop? Because the good news is that the activity that I have for us is going to answer some of these questions, especially Usama's really important question about how do you connect your narrative to a bigger theme? I think that's the hardest thing about this genre. When we start writing in this genre, that's a different thing, right? That's a different thing. So anything else we want to add to the list before we get started?
Nope.
Cool. Well, I'll just say you guys might not be able to see, but as promised, Diana Hicks, our dean, is here. Remember, she's here to see you and see me, and I'll just say, hey, Diana. Diana's turning her screen on. Hey, Diana. You don't, we're not going to make her talk or say anything, but.
Sorry, I was finishing my lunch. Hello.
Hello. Nice to have you in our class.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
Cool. Well, I just wanted to say I saw you and I know you're here and we'll just keep doing our thing. And just like all the other students, Diana, you can turn your screen off at any time. This is not a mandatory screen on type of class. So cool. Well, we'll get started with the workshop then. So here is what we're doing. So just like we've been doing with other writers, I'm going to project some things on the screen, but the only difference, and I'm going to read them to you, just like I have been doing. But the difference is these are your essays, some of your essays. These are essays from our class. These are from students in our class. So you probably did some kind of peer review in other classes, right? If you did 340 or 325. I thought long and hard about how to do that for this class online, and I just think it's kind of too crazy to put you in groups and assign you each an essay. So I'm just going to sort of project the essays on the screen. I'm going to read through them, and then we're going to talk about them together. But there's no names on them, okay? There's no names on any of them. But like any type of writing workshop, and again, getting you ready for poetry, when we start to talk about poems, there's some sort of rules or guidelines for this type of activity. So first is, I'm going to read and you're going to read along or listen along with me. As you're reading, I really want you to focus on the 3 types of writing that we're studying for this assignment: theme, narrative, and descriptive writing. For every essay that we look at in this workshop, I want you to find one thing that you think the writer did really well, and I want you to find one thing that you think the writer can improve. I want you to always be respectful. I know that we are as a class. I'm not worried about that at all. And then don't waste time talking about grammar or sentence structure. Let me do that. I know another reason that I think peer review is hit or miss, is sometimes good, sometimes bad with ESL students, is usually students love to be like, oh, there was a verb tense error. And it's like, okay, like I'll handle the grammar. Okay, so let's just focus on the big picture stuff. All right. Great. So here's what I want to do. Here we go. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to see how many of these essays we can get through, but we're going to do this same chart that we've done for each of the last 2 weeks, looking at the different stories. So again, as you read through, be prepared to talk about where you saw examples of theme in this writing, where you saw examples of a story with a beginning, middle, and an end, and where you see examples of really descriptive writing. Cool? Questions before we get going with essay 1? Natalia, your hand is still up. Is that from earlier? If so, I can lower it.
No, sorry, it was accidentally.
Gracias. Okay, let's get going. Also, I'll notice these first couple essays I'm going to show you are just perfect. So speaking here, way speaking about the rules of formatting, right? Like even for this type of writing, Times New Roman 12-point font double spaced. This is a tool that you will use for every class you take in any college for the rest of your life. So just get used to doing that. So I think these are good things to see. And again, student name, my name, the class, and the date. This is pretty standard MLA formatting. So just more things to show you and review. But let's get going with our first narrative. So here it is. First day of class. A gloomy, cold winter morning, January 17th, 2017. It's 6:30 a.m. and I woke up from a short 4-hour sleep. My brain keeps telling me to get more sleep and my body seems to agree, stay in bed. As I open my eyes, my 7-month-old son was lying next to me with my arms wrapped around his body. I had to convince myself that after a long break from school, I'm going to sit in a class again. I graduated from college way back in 2011. I came from a foreign country, the Philippines, and graduated with a bachelor's degree in nursing. After 4 years of prolonged agony, struggling through sleepless nights and hospital duties, I finally graduated and thought that I was already done with college. Moving forward with my life, I thought I wouldn't have to deal with such stress again. But then here I am in Sacramento, California, and now facing a great transition in my life. A single mom who have to go back to school and take up a different course of study. I'm currently taking up respiratory care as an international student. As per law, I had to take a total of 12 units for each of the semester. Being new to the country and school system, I had no clue on how to make my own class schedule. I was used to block sections in my past university, and our class schedule was already set per semester. Whichever department your major is from, they already have a list of course subjects laid out from first year until you graduate. Upon admission, the student will be assigned to a block section wherein all the students who is part of it would be taking the same classes for that certain semester. Unfortunately, I had no luck with my class schedule for my first semester at American River College. The first thing I had to take early in the morning on a Monday is an anatomy and physiology class, Biology 102, which I hated the most out of all the science classes I took before. I'm quite anxious as to what the class would be like and who would my professor be. I finally mustered up the courage to fully wake myself up. I slowly and quietly got out of bed so the baby won't wake up. I was excited but nervous as I was getting ready for school. I didn't know what clothes to wear. I always kept in mind that first impression lasts, which is why I am quite undecided on how to dress up. I couldn't seem to figure out which top would go with what type of color of bottoms. I can't help but compare the way back in the Philippines. I didn't have to worry for such a simple thing as what to wear because we had uniforms. Back then, I had to wear a pink blouse and a gray A-lined skirt with matching gray necktie for every school day. I had to tie up my hair in a ponytail and put on red lipstick before going to class. My shoes had to be closed toe and black in color with at least 2 inches of heel. It was a school policy for women not to carry a backpack because they think of it as unladylike. Hence, I had to bring a big purse or a shoulder bag to fit all of my things. This was typically the image of me when I was still a nursing student. My school had high standards and students who go there are expected to behave and dress up according to their rules and regulations. I've always hated the color combination of our uniform back then, but came to admire it now whenever I see images of someone wearing it. It made me feel proud that of all the other nursing schools in the Philippines, we were one of the schools that didn't have to abide to the cliche rule of white nurses. Typical nursing schools in the Philippines usually wear white uniforms. As I was able to pick out what to wear, I chose a black long-sleeved shirt paired to thick, dark blue skinny jeans, which led me to another problem. What shoes should I wear? I was looking at lots of shoes in different types and colors as if I was in a Payless store. My sister loves shopping for shoes and bags, which I benefited most because I get to borrow them. We have the same shoe size, so we don't mind sharing. As I was browsing, I had my eyes set on a short-cut boots because I knew it was cold outside. I grabbed a pair of black socks and put them on. I took my black Madden Girl backpack, which was packed with the things I needed for the first day of school. Before leaving the room, the first thing I thought of was checking if I had my phone and wallet with me, and indeed it was. When I unlocked my phone, it was already 7 a.m. and I was ready to go. As I stepped out of the house, I felt the cold breeze of the air blowing to my face, which gave me chills. I went back inside the house to grab a thick brown jacket. I walked fast towards the car since my father was going to drive me to school because I don't have my driver's license just yet. I got into the front seat, and sitting on the driver's side was my father. People often say I was a replica of him, but a female version, including the long, straight hair. Coincidentally, he was wearing a black long sleeve shirt as well. He looked at me and let out a big sigh. Our house was about 10 to 15 minutes away from school. He's the type of person that doesn't like to be late. He also doesn't like the feeling that he had to drive in a rush because he thinks it is prone to accidents. While on our way to school, it wasn't traffic at all since it was still early. As I sat still on the passenger seat, I kept thinking about what my teacher would be like, if I would make friends at school, or if the first day would be the same experience I had when I was taking up nursing in the Philippines. It was already 7:15 when we reached the college, and I didn't know where to go. My dad dropped me off at the parking lot near the student services area. I pulled out my phone and looked at the school map to check where my classroom would be located at. I then found out that I had to walk towards the back of the parking lot in order to find the science building. I had to walk through several offices to reach the last room by parking lot C. I found myself standing outside room 493 with butterflies in my stomach. I had no idea what to expect. I'm confused whether I should knock to see if there's someone inside, or should I wait for 7:30 before entering the room. It was freezing cold outside, so I decided to knock and opened the door. As I went inside, I saw a room packed with students and the teacher in front of the class, who looked very young, whom I thought was in her early 30s. She was dark-skinned, wearing a black and red plaid long-sleeve shirt and a pair of black slacks. She was busy fixing her PowerPoint presentation, so I just greeted her, started to take the roll. She introduced herself by saying that her name was Dr. Jane Manty. She mentioned she doesn't mind being called Dr. Manty or Dr. Jane, or even Professor. She then handed out the syllabus, which she started discussing what was in it. Alongside was the course calendar and outline that specifically showed the class dates and activities that were expected to happen during those days. As I was sitting there listening to Dr. Manty, I couldn't help but notice that the students were of different ages, colors, and ethnicities. I was expecting that, just like when I was still in the Philippines, students are most likely to be of the same age, and it was unusual to have classmates coming from a different age group. Teachers who teach us in college were in their early 40s or higher. I was used to the fact that introduction amongst classmates was supposed to happen, and so that everyone would get acquainted to each other since they would be spending a semester together. However, no such thing occurred. I guess it's just different in some places. The people and culture are different, and so does their practices. I have to adjust to these changes in order to learn. Oh well, there goes my first day of classes. So I'm gonna I agree with Fada, I agree. Again, just as a teacher, this student already knows this is a beautiful narrative already, right? This is fantastic, and I feel so, this is why I love my job. I get to read, you guys share these stories with me, and it's a huge gift that all of you give me. So again, let's just say this is already fantastic. But as an example of student writing, of what we're talking about, let's just jump in. So we can, I'm thinking of Natalia, who was asking about present tense and past tense. I will say, with lots of love and care, there was a lot of verb tense switching going on in that essay. But beyond that, thinking about theme, narrative, and descriptive writing, let's look at some examples in this essay together. What did we notice? I'll put the essay back up so we can see. Ahmad, go for it.
You're on mute.
You're muted, Ahmad.
I'm sorry. Based on my observation of the essay, I thought there are kind of mix of the two themes, is punctualism and the transition.
Oh my God. Okay, I love it. See, again, when I read this essay and gave feedback to the student, I didn't think of punctuality, time or punctuality as a theme. I love it. And what was the second one you said, Ahmad?
Transition.
Transition. Great. Hold on, I think I see some things in the chat. Good job, narrative, descriptive, but what happened to the theme? Hadi is saying, what's going on with the theme? We'll talk about that. Hiraway, I see your hand. What's up?
Yeah, I agree with that comment just came in, but also seeing the cultural transition and then adapting new culture and some struggles in the
Right.
transition.
Good. Cultural transition. This is like Ahmad was saying, cultural transition. And then what was the second thing you said? Adaptation.
Adaptation and some struggles within.
Great. I'm going to add this too. Again, oh God, how fantastic. The theme that I kept thinking about here that was a little bit in there was family, because this author started with the story about being with her child, with her son, and then there was this story about driving with her father. So when I was talking to the student, I was talking about maybe family was a theme coming up. It's good. So anybody else about anything? Doesn't have to be theme. Yes, Osama, go ahead.
The regulations.
Rules, regulations.
Yes, there is many regulations should be done during the day.
Love it. Okay.
She
Perfect.
is answering this step by step thing up, and she is in the classroom.
Love it.
There is regulations
Yes.
to do.
I love Osama saying regulations, but as I'm listening to Osama, I was also thinking about like process as a process, because Osama said step by step. That is something that this author did really, really well, in my opinion, you guys, is remember, a narrative is a beginning, middle, and end. I mean, this author painted such a clear picture. You can imagine, right? I did this, then I did this, and it connected to this, and then and that is a very successful example of the narrative. So I'm just going to list the example. I would say, to me, a very successful example of narrative writing was choosing which clothes to wear, right? I mean, this author was so good about like, I did this, then I did that, then I looked in the closet, then I got this shirt. I mean, very clear beginning, middle, and end with the story, right? Other examples, again, theme, narrative, description, anything. What'd you guys notice?
Finding friends. I'm sorry.
Here, let's go Hiraway, and then we'll go back to Ahmad. Hiraway, what'd you notice?
Sorry, Ahmed. And I said finding friends and how to make friends.
Where would we put this in this chart? Narrative, description?
Narrative.
Okay. Great. And that was this section. Usama, I see you, and then we'll go to Ahmad. So was that this section here at the end, Hiraway?
No, at the end, she came back, or he came back. Obviously, she. But in the middle, but in the middle,
the lipstick, I guess. Yeah.
She was talking about. She started. She wonders if she can make friends.
Nice.
So it sounded like in Philippine, it was in the case, but at the end, she came back as a little bit of disappointment that it didn't happen. So that's why I thought it went through the. Throughout the story, a little bit about friends.
Love it. And then Ahmad, please. And then I see other people have raised their hands, so we'll get to you in a second. Ahmad, please.
Yes, I have noticed some descriptive writing in the paper.
Yes.
I think in paragraph 3 and 4, when she is talking about the shoes and type of clothing.
I agree completely. I mean, there is some just absolutely phenomenal descriptive writing. The description of her clothing is just, I would say, and that could be everything. That's also like lipstick, hair, her backpack, the Madden bag. There's some just fantastic descriptive details. And even, again, lipstick, what color lipstick? Red lipstick. We get this image, right? Even just this one word of telling us what color, we have this strong feeling of descriptive detail. So the description of her clothing, lipstick, hair, backpack, Madden bag. What else do I remember? 2-inch heels. And again, just really, really specific and descriptive writing. Usama, and then I see Natasha has her hand raised as well. So Usama and then Natasha, what you got?
I feel there is a fluency in the writing. Rhythm is very fast, very quick. Moving from here to here to here in a rhythm. Nice. One breath.
One breath, good. So Usama's just praising. Usama's just saying that the writing it flows very well. And I think this goes back to what Usama was saying is When the narrative is clear, when the beginning, middle, and end of the story is clear, you do get this flow. You do get this feeling. It feels like there's momentum to the story, right? And you do kind of, it takes you as the reader along for the ride. I totally agree. Natasha, go ahead.
I see that this essay is a narrative comparative.
Go ahead.
She compares all from the beginning to the end about her process of studying in the Philippines and the process of the here. She compares two styles of the school, and also, yeah, the second part, I mean the second column, it will be the styles of the Philippine school and American style, and also descriptive, it will be she described already somebody told the uniform and how she looked. Also, she compared the students, the age of the students, the age of the professor, and everything.
Perfect. What her classroom and what her class and classmates looked like. Great. Another great example of descriptive writing, Natasha. I totally agree. I totally agree. What else? And because I have two, so I want to hear what you have to say, maybe one or two more people, and then I want to tell you the things that I want to focus on before we look at another example. Anybody else? Okay, I scared you all when I said that. Okay. What's the theme? What's the theme is my real question. Do you see a clear theme? Like, let's talk about theme. And remember, one thing that I showed you guys is, for this type of writing, for a kind of a personal narrative or a literary narrative, usually you're introducing the theme at the very beginning of the essay, usually the first 2 or 3 paragraphs. So if I'm showing you the first page here, what do we think the theme is? Jay is saying the theme wasn't clear. Hero was saying, great point. What do you guys think about the theme? Let's talk about it. Hero was saying she struggled to find the theme a little bit. So let's just look, I just want to again show you, I'll just read these first 2 paragraphs again, because remember, for this type of genre, the first few paragraphs are so important, right? And this also goes back to Ahmad's great question about what's the difference between a first-person narrative and a third-person narrative. Well, in a long third-person narrative, the reader has this understanding, at least English reader, right, has this understanding that the meaning of the story might change as the events in the story change. In a first-person narrative, because it's so personal, the reader, for me, when I read your wonderful essays, I do have this feeling of like, oh, wow, like the thing that the reader introduces at the beginning is really, that's what the story is going to be about, right? That's the heart of the story. So that's another important thing to say about Ahmad's question about the difference between first person and third person. Because it feels so personal, the reader's going to assume from the very beginning, wow, okay, this person's sharing something very important at the beginning of the story. So if you look at the beginning, a gloomy, cold winter morning, January 17th, 2017. I'll make it a little bigger even. We'll just do the first 2 paragraphs. It's 6:30 a.m. and I woke up from a short 4-hour sleep. My brain keeps telling me to get more sleep and my body seems to agree stay in bed. As I opened my eyes, my 7-month-old son was laying next to me with my arms wrapped around his body. I had to convince myself that after a long break from school, I'm going to sit in class again. I graduated from college way back in 2011. I came from a foreign country, the Philippines, and graduated with a bachelor's degree in nursing. After 4 years of prolonged agony, I love this sentence, struggling through sleepless nights and hospital duties, I finally graduated and thought that I was already done with college. Moving forward with my life, I thought I wouldn't have to deal with such stress again, but then here I am in Sacramento, California, and now facing a great transition in my life, a single mom who has to go back to school and take up a different course of study. Now, let's imagine these were the only 2 paragraphs we can see. Let's highlight some words or phrases that you think could be themes, that are like interesting enough to be a theme. So what do we got? I think we have lots of options. When Jay is saying it's not clear, maybe it's not clear because there are so many good ideas and we need to kind of focus on only 1 or 2. Do you know what I mean? So what do we notice? Ahmad and then Usama.
basically, I would say that the theme would be about the college life and how hard it is.
Great. Okay, so there's college. I do see, I'm highlighting sort of words with college words. Bachelor's, college, school. Did I miss an? I think, oh, class. Okay, I love it. Great. Now, Hiroi is saying transition. I saw that in the chat. Hiroi, can you give me an example of a key word or sentence where that idea of transition
Yeah,
shows up?
it said also transition, the word, where was it?
Second to the
Down
last.
at this end of the
Second,
paragraph.
Jay's telling us where it is. Here it is.
Oh yeah, here you go. Right. Thank you, guys.
Got it. Good. Anybody else? Things that you saw or other ideas for themes? Usama, go ahead.
Yes, the theme I think is back to school. How to return back to school.
I like, so we talked about school. Ahmad was saying school, but Usama's adding this idea about returning or going back, or there's a different feeling there. Okay, that's nice.
Also, we can add a foreign country because
Yeah.
the transition not within the country, it is a key here.
I agree completely
essay.
with that. If we think about transition, then that means from one place to another place. So
Yeah.
when the author talks about
in the second paragraph here at the end, I came from a foreign country. I graduated from college way back in 2011. I came from a foreign country.
Love it. Fantastic. Great. And again, I want to hear from more people, but I'm just going to add, maybe again for me, maybe this just shows where my brain is at. But this image to me is so strong in the first paragraph, this idea of the mother connecting with her child. And then of course we get this, a single mom, right? Like, so again, like I said, when I gave feedback to this author, I was saying, wow, the thing that I connected to as a theme was family or mom or son or child. Great. Anything else we see in here? Now here I'm going to ask a question. Do you see how all of these ideas are amazing? All of them are beautiful. All of them are important. But do we see how if we include all of them at the beginning, the theme, the overall theme is not as clear? Does that make sense? I see Hadi's nodding, Hiro is nodding, Ahmad is nodding, right? So the feedback that I gave, and then I got to talk to this student, and I sort of said, hey, what did you think the theme was? And Hiroe, as usual, is correct. This student said, I think it's about transition. And I sort of said, okay, well then I gave the student a suggestion about what to do. And I was like, sort of write 2 or 3 paragraphs just about transition, put them at the beginning, and then send it back to me for me to look at. Because if we get this theme up at the very beginning, this is like I showed you guys 2 weeks ago and last week, what we put at the beginning of this type of genre will change how the reader connects to the rest of the essay for the whole thing. So I was just curious what would happen if we got a paragraph that was just about transition instead of school plus family plus transition plus plus moving from a new country, how that would change the feeling of the whole essay. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Anything else we want to say about theme? Because otherwise, before we look at essay number 2, I do want to talk about verb tense because we have a lot going on. Anything else about theme? Hiroi, you want to talk about theme, Hiroi?
Yes, maybe the theme, but I wonder, including myself, when we start writing an essay, I like this essay because it's like just like a book, right? It's very nice descriptive writing. But however, we often talk about what you just said, we have to put our theme in the first paragraph. So then I wondered, but a lot of books we read starts like this, right? But now I remember that most of the books has an introduction.
Well,
in the essay, we don't have an introduction page.
That's right.
So the nice books start just like this.
That's right.
But we read already, what is about in the introduction or back of the book.
Exactly. So, and again, keep that very intelligent and thoughtful comment in your mind when we read The Lathe of Heaven, because what you're going to see is in fiction, especially, in my opinion, now I'm going to say good fiction, but this is just my opinion, right? There's all types of good fiction. Usually, even at the very beginning, even if they're just telling a story about a character, you do the author introduces important images, important feelings that you don't understand at the beginning, right? If you only read one page of a 300-page novel, you might not be able to say what it is. But when you finish it and you go back to the first page, usually you're like, whoa, like the author is playing with these ideas even from the very beginning of the narrative. And again, it just goes back to Ahmad's great question from the difference between a first person and a third person. In a third person narrative, you're just kind of along for the ride. When we start to read The Lathe of Heaven, you're going to see, right? It's about a character named George. George gets up, he leaves his house, and you're just kind of following what happens to him, right? But again, by the end, you start to see, wow, you know, the author chose to start George at this place at this time because they were saying something about a bigger theme or a bigger goal or a bigger vision or something like this. I'm going to read Hadi just typed into the chat. I think we should compare this essay with the prompt she chose it and help her to improve it. Right now, we're trying to find or make a new theme. This is my idea. Yeah, I think Hadi's right. I agree with what Hadi just said in the chat. I would also add, instead of changing the theme, this is again what I told this student, I think we're really trying to just focus the theme. And again, if this was a 10-page narrative, maybe you wouldn't need to focus, but this is a relatively short narrative. Do you know what I mean? And in only 1,500 words, it is kind of important to get the big ideas in there right from the beginning. Hold on, there's a loud gardener outside. Let me close the window. Oh, I can focus now. So let's, again, I want to do verb tenses just a little bit because this is hard and all it takes is practice. And remember, grammar is a really small part of your grade for this type of essay. But let's just look at this. And if you email me your document and I respond back to you, I'll do track changes. Track changes in Microsoft Word just means if I make a change, it shows you that I changed this thing instead of just deleting it or getting rid of it. It's really helpful. So again, if you guys ever email me stuff, I like to do track changes. So I'm going to do that for this one. Let's look at the verb tenses here. So I'm just going to read this short paragraph one more time, and let's keep Natalia's good question about verb tenses here. A gloomy cold winter morning, January 17th, 2017. It's 6:30 and I woke up from a short 4-hour sleep. My brain keeps telling me to get more sleep and my body seemed to agree, stay in bed. As I opened my eyes, my 7-month-old son was lying next to me with my arms wrapped around his body. I had to convince myself that after a long break from school, I am going to sit in class again. So we've got some fun verb tense stuff, you guys. What do you notice? What's going on here? Usama, I saw your hand.
I see different tenses.
I do too, yeah. And well, just again, without a right or wrong answer, what sounds good to you? What does one feel more natural? What do you think, Osama? And you can point to an example sentence here, or just what do you see? What do you think?
She is going and returning back by using the tenses to tell us her story, how things is going on.
Absolutely.
On in this way, that when she described things or what she thinking now, and so yeah.
Good. I love it. What else? Who else wants to talk about the verb tenses? Ahmad, you want to get in there?
That still makes sense to understand the general idea, but it would be better if she could use the simple past tense, including past continuous.
Ahmad, you can teach the class today. Yeah, I think I agree with everything he just said. I think it still makes sense and it's lovely. It's still lovely. And yet, again, for me, my native speaker ear, it jumps around too much. It's kind of like, ooh, I don't, and I'll show you an example of this. So Ahmad is suggesting simple past tense. I think I would agree. Again, Dean Hicks here, she was teaching English. So we talked about the literary present. We looked at those examples. This is hard because we're going to see this type of writing use the present tense too. It's really difficult because you've seen examples where people use the present tense like this. I'm sure in other ESL classes probably, because when you read narratives, this is common. Like I said, in an English paper, if you take English 300, or if you take a literature class, it's very common to see, you know, William Shakespeare, he's been dead for 400 years, but you might see a sentence, Shakespeare writes about what, you know, using the present tense, even though these things happen in the past. So this is one challenge for ESL. We're so closely connected to English literature that we have this connection. And that's, again, we talked about that in the textbook that we were reading. Hadi, did I see your hand? You want to talk about tense as well?
I wanted, I think she used it just present tense because the first sentence she said, it's 2017.
Yeah. Well, she said, there's no verb tense here. A gloomy, cold winter morning, beautiful descriptive writing. Gloomy is a fantastic word. January 17th, 2017. Okay, we don't even have a subject verb. We don't have this is a sentence fragment, but it's creative writing. It doesn't really matter. Then we get, it is 6:30 a.m. And again, in an English literature class, this makes sense. You know, even if you say it was January 7th, on January 17th, 2017, well, oh, here let me just type this in the student's essay so that you can see what I'm saying. This sentence, it's 6:30 a.m. on January 17th, 2017. That's not weird. That's not abnormal. This is kind of something like reported. This is somewhere between the literary present and reported speech. You know what I mean? This is kind of in that gray zone. So this isn't strange at all. But I do think, so does that make sense, Hadi? Like you were saying, Hadi was making a good point about, we're talking about a day in the past, but we're using the present tense. And that's the challenge here. And how do you balance that out? I think the short answer for you guys, again, you're all very high level learners, but I think the easiest way, if you're going, oh my God, Jeff, what should I do? Just go past tense, because you might feel like it sounds too simple, but it's hard to be wrong if we say, it was 6:30 a.m. and I woke up from a short 4 hours sleep. My brain kept telling me to get more sleep and my body seemed to agree. And actually, this is now, Hiro is asking about quotes. Let's put this in quotations. Like imagine that your body is saying a quote to you. As I opened my eyes, my 7-month-old son was lying next to me with my arms wrapped around his body. I had to convince myself that after a long break from school, I was going to sit in class again. That's what it looks like with all simple past tense, basically, or past continuous. Do you guys feel the difference?
Professor,
tell me.
I think sometimes in writing we should come back to that time. We cannot use always past tense, because sometimes when we come back to that time, we can describe strongly than when we talk about the past. Sometimes we need to come back to that time and describe what happened.
Yes. Now, I love what Hadi was saying about come back to that time, because this again is what we talked about in the reading that we did for this type of essay writing. And Farah, I see your hand. I want to hear from you in a second. But the general rule is what Ahmad said. Use the simple past tense to describe or go back to events that happened in the past. Then in this type of narrative, you can switch to the present tense when you're reflecting on or thinking about how you feel right now about the past. Does that make sense? So I wrote a really kind of not great sentence, but just as an example, if at the end of this paragraph, we have, as I opened my eyes, my son was lying next to me. I had to convince myself that after a long break from school, I was going to sit in class. I understand now that this is one of the most difficult things I would ever do in my transition to a new life, right? Again, not a great sentence, but in this sentence that I just sort of came up with, it's saying now, when I think about this now, when I think about the past now, I feel a certain way in the present moment, right? And that way you're connecting back to things that happened in the past, but you're explaining that they're connected to how you feel now. Does that make sense? Good. Did I start to get a little, am I unstable? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Farah, tell me what's up.
So actually, you answered part of my questions as well, but I want to say, so when we use self-reported, not quoting reported, I guess it's okay. I see that a template like January 17, 2017. I remember one thing from the 5 people when you met in the event.
Yes.
That was like reported like the same path, the same theme. In my idea, sometimes when we reported about self-reporting, it's just better than to use the sample present. I don't know if it's correct in the grammatical point or not, or according to the rules. But it's I feel it better. Like I feel it in myself when I read this kind of times.
Yeah. So you're saying you prefer to use the simple past tense. Is that right, Fatah?
When I wanna report it, self-reporting.
Yeah.
It means when something that I do, I see.
I agree. I think, like I said, I think what Ahmad said is correct. In general, for when you see my first grade and when you revise this essay, the simple past tense to talk about past events is best. You can switch to the present when you want to say now I think or now I feel or at that or something about that, right? You can switch back to the present tense when you're sharing about how you feel about the past in the present, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? Okay. Cool. So I want to switch to the next essay, but any other examples about this essay or any ideas? So let's just do one more round of applause for this essay. It was really, really beautiful. And you again see, you can have a great narrative and sometimes connect. So this was Usama's first question at the beginning of class. How do you connect your narrative to a theme? It's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard. Okay. Oh, I have a chat, so I'll check before. Jay says, thank you, Professor. Thank you, Jay. Thank you. Okay, let's go to the next essay. Oh, we got some loud stuff going on. Can you guys hear the leaf blower and stuff? Oh, Diana says no. Okay, good. That's great. Okay. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. I want you to think. So this is the notes that I'm going to leave about. Also, see the document, see the video. So for this one, I'm not going to post student essays into Canvas in our live support. I'm not going to put other students' materials. But again, that is in the recording, so you can go back and review any of the things that we just talked about. So I'm leaving this note here in the PowerPoint. Again, for the people who aren't here, see the recording for examples of past versus present tense in the story and in the narrative. Okay, so let's move on to essay number 2. This might be the last one we get to talk about. But again, just more examples. Student name, I'm going to put on track changes right now. Remember, oh, we can delete this. MLA formatting says your name, my name, class title, class number, and the date that the essay is due. All right, so read along with me and I'll just read out loud. So parts of my life story. I grew up in a middle-class, educated family, which compound from 9 brothers and our parents. They'd been interested in reading, music, sport, movie, theater, art. The liberal ideas were most of the family members' mind. So we were open-minded, but with a critical thought to all kinds of objects. The main object took most of our lifetime was the freedom and how our country can get rid of its dictatorial regime and return its lost freedom. As I understand that language is living things, and as I knew before, the language is the main to allow brain from functioning, and words are the abstract symbols, reflect our 5 senses in their relations with all creatures and nature. In another word, language is a tool of the Homo sapiens. As language reflects sensible matters, it is also reflecting spiritual matters. Language allowed us to express ourselves, feelings, and thoughts. Therefore, language is living matter. We have to use the language to understand each other. Language is the lonely, peaceful path to express people demand, to make a change in their life and to achieve their hopes. I'm going to use this precious tool to write part of my life story. Since my early beginning, my life was surrounded by a mixture of instability, danger, fear, poverty, prosperity, fatigue, sickness, fun, happiness, misery, adventures, challenges, surprises, expectations, and suspense. These mixtures related to many and various stories happened in my life. One of them started after the university graduation. I was working as a mechanical engineer in the oil services. The work was intermittent, but in parallel, I was working in a civil. I was struggling for the human rights of the Syrian citizens. That was started in 1974, where this kind of activity was forbidden and very dangerous. Tenths of thousands of activists were arrested, tortured, and killed. At the beginning of this century, I, my wife, and some friends established a nonprofit organization defending the political and civil activists' prisoners' rights and taking care of prisoners' families, where such work must be underground, invisible, and out of government detectives' eyes. This work required to find out donors to support prisoners inside their jail, also to support their families, besides to pay lawyers' fees. Furthermore, this work requires finding out and hired human rights lawyers where they should be accepted by the government to defend the prisoners. The courts were false, but we used them to communicate with the prisoners and supply them with financial supports. That was a dangerous mission. I was arrested in one of these missions and stayed in jail for 8 months and 4 days. The investigators of the Political Intelligence Bureau covered my head with a black plastic bag in a very insulting manner, and they put me in a car and drove me to an unknown place. During the way I felt I couldn't breathe, I was suffocating and I was going to die. When we arrived at the unknown detention center, the jailer took me to the basement of the building. The place there was almost dark, so it's difficult time if it's a day or nighttime. The place there had a bad smell and full of rotten, and the air was full of viscous moisture that was disgusting, which made me vomit. I thought that was the end of my life. Nobody knew where I was. They put me in a 10 by 10 room occupied by 18 prisoners with one restroom for 22 days. I was tortured there day and night. After 22 days, they shifted me to civil jail for the remaining period where there was a moot court judge that I am not guilty. Then they released me. Within the jail period, the time was endless, going very slowly, and so depressed. On one of the days, I saw through the window of the dormitory a bird flying in the sky. I felt that I'm so jealous of him because it was free to go any place it wants while I was stacked in this miserable jail. That pushed me to think about all the creatures of God, such as ants, and how they are free to be inside or outside the fence of the jail at any time they want. Since that time, I fed the birds and the ants where they assisted me to get out of my cocoon, sadness, and depression. They made me dream that I am weightlessness, flying through freedom spaces between the stars. They returned me to the earth to think about the importance of freedom for humanity. When they released me, I was so sick, and that required a long time to recover and returned to normal life. The story of supporting prisoners inside their jail. This mission required us to find out prisoners' guards' names, addresses, information about the nature of each of them, and if they can cooperate with us in exchange for providing them with financial support. After that, how to find a connection with them. In general, we could succeed. Some of the guards delivered the exact amount of money we gave them to the prisoners. Others didn't. For example, some of them took all the money and cut their relationship with us. Some took half of the money and delivered half. They created incidents to prevent them to do the job properly. But the most dangerous part of the story when some of those guards made traps for us. Sometimes we discovered these traps and we could run away from them. But other times, some members of our team were arrested where they were tortured and killed within months. That was a very big loss for us. These tragic events relatively frozen our missions for a while. At that time, all the team was convinced if we want to get that freedom, we have to submit sacrifices when needed. The story of supporting prisoners' families was so exciting. This mission also needed so much information about the prisoners' families. We needed to know their addresses, quantity of each family, their ages and educations to determine what kind of supplies we should to prepare and deliver these supplies to them. In general, most of the families were educated but poor. After the completion of the studying, we found this mission required to practice getting several kinds of skills. Also, we have to find resources to support the project. When we started execution, we found that we have to work on a wide area where we didn't know many places. However, we started this scary mission by preparing some supplies from our houses, such as food, books, clothes, and toys. Step by step, the work extended to cover most of the country. Our target was to feel the families that they are not alone, plant a smile on the prisoners' children's faces, and hope in the hearts of mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, relatives, and friends of the prisoners. This assistant strengthens the prisoners inside their jails when they feel their family are secured. During this mission, we faced so many dramatic incidents. Many of us were arrested, tortured, and some were killed. We'd succeeded to join our organization, many who believe in the value of liberty and civil rights of the people. This story took 14 years of hard work from our life. Within the last part of the story, between life in the country became difficult and scary. Therefore, many of my colleagues in the organization were arrested, kidnapped, disappeared, or run away out of the country. At that time, we felt the rope come closer to our neck, so we decided to leave the country as soon as possible. Where our lives were in danger, in the end, we could barely leave the country. So what do I have other than using the language to describe my deep wounds, grief, and broken heart? The physical fact that I'm alive, here, a citizen between citizens in the USA, safe and have rights. My dignity is protected, not like in my native country without dignity and without any kind of rights. However, I need the word to write about myself, my pain, my story, my died relatives, friends, and colleagues. I have to tell everybody in the world what's going on in my country. Consequently, the language is the lonely mean to keep my stories about freedom alive. Language can all people use. Good people and bad people can use it in several ways for conflicting purposes. In fact, the language was the lonely tool of the Syrian opposition to express itself and to spread its liberal ideas, explain how the totalitarian system does an injustice to citizens. How much is precious the language for the Syrians? It was the living tool that motivates citizens to revolt against their dictatorial system, where that proved Syrians could bear from the heart of the sorrows. Meditation is Phoenix Syrians. Can Syrians people do as the Phoenix did, rising from the ashes to live through another cycle? I believe Syrians did it again and again between 2011 and 2020. Maybe that's happening because this classical mythology had created around their region, but now I'm not sure if they can do it again. I know the facts said there are in human history many nations, injustices, crises died. Also, nations disappeared from the map of the world. Unfortunately, the history has been done by the stronger, great countries, or like elephant, when walking, they crushed weak countries without feeling. Why this tragic situation has been happening in Syria? Simply because Syrian citizens has been exploded on 3/16/2011 against their totalitarian regime, who controlled their country for more than 57 years. And still controlling it and facing the Syrian peaceful revolution by using all kinds of weapons, such as firing weapons, chemical weapons, and siege, starvation. Why? Because Syrian peaceful revolution wants to return their dignity and their freedom. Words are the lonely mean to keep me and my stories alive. So again, let's take a second, take a moment. Again, big stuff, really important. Some of the realest, most difficult things that a human being can feel and experience, this student chose to write about. We are lucky that we get to read these stories to each other and share them with each other. We are so blessed. So beyond thinking about any of the details, right, I do want us to think about some of this in the context of our narrative storytelling. I think I chose these two essays because I think one, the first example is not a very, the theme wasn't clear. In my opinion, the theme here is very clear. I think the theme is like a beautiful beating heart in this essay, right? So I think, and I think there's some narrative stuff we can talk about, right? So again, it's not about this person's experience. This person's experience is perfect. We're talking about the nature of the narrative. So what did people notice? Anything, theme, narrative, description, or just anybody's thoughts and feelings as we fill out this chart here? What do we notice? Ahmad, go ahead.
I will start with the theme. The theme is pretty clear at the end of the introduction.
What is it?
It's about getting the freedom back.
I was going to say, give me one word, and you just said that word. I think I completely agree, Ahmad. I think the theme for this essay is freedom, to me, 100%, 100%. And let's go back. Ahmad was saying that happened at the end of the first paragraph. And so that we can zoom in. This one?
Peaceful revolution.
Yep.
Peaceful revolution. Yeah.
Again, and again now, and again, here's another quick, I wasn't going to teach you this tech tip, but here's a little quick computer tip. If you have a Windows computer, I'm sorry, my Mac people, I don't know. But if you're in a document like this, you can hit the CTRL button, control, hold it and hit F, and then you can search the document. So if I type in freedom, the word freedom appears in this paper 7 times. This paper is only about 4 pages long, and the word freedom is in this paper 7 times, right? So again, like theme, 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 right? Very, very clear, very clear. Oh, and if you do Control F and you search over here, and it'll show you, right? Like there's freedom. Oh, and then it just finds freedom for you. So again, you can do this on a web page. You can do this in a PDF, sometimes a PDF. But if you ever are looking for a certain word in a document, Control F, my friends, Control F. Great. So Ahmad was saying the theme is very clear. It's the last sentence of the first paragraph. It is freedom. Good. What else do we notice? Yeah, go ahead, Ahmad. Keep going.
I noticed something really interesting in this paper. I don't know how it is appropriate to doing it that way. Like when he started with the language after introduction, and at the middle of the essay, he reconnected everything back. There was a reconnection between the theme and the essay, but I loved it the way it was done.
Good. I would say, and here's another sort of academic, another academic literary term for you. And, you know, that's the kind of class we're doing here. Let me copy this and get it for you. I would say the first essay was very clear. Like I said, beginning, middle, and end. It was very clear. Like it was one story with a beginning, middle, and end. I'd say this story has a little bit of a non-linear structure. That means you start the story, then you have a paragraph that's about something different, then you go back to the story at a different time in the story. So that's like when Ahmad was saying, you connect back to things. So you introduce something, an idea, tell part of the story, and reconnect back to that idea, then go back to the story. This is again the idea of that little non-linear idea or kind of circular storytelling. Absolutely, absolutely. Great, Hiroe, what you got?
Yes, I agree with Ahmed. A little bit embarrassed for me to say anything because obviously the students write such beautiful essays, right? But I also thought at the beginning, oh, it is maybe about the language. And then in the middle section, I lost and maybe super descriptive writing, but I didn't know what the theme would be now. And then at the end, they came back. Everything came together, and language and freedom connected. So, you know what I mean? So I wanted to have like this language part, maybe at the introduction a little bit, so that I know it was about the connection.
Absolutely. Hiroe is pointing out, again, Hiroe's comment is exactly connected to Ahmad. Ahmad was saying, okay, it's not as clear beginning, middle, and end. It jumps around a little bit, and that you can do that. But one thing that can happen when you do it is the reader feels like, wait a minute, like, what's the theme? You know what I mean? Like it does feel a little bit harder to keep one clear theme, beginning, middle, and end, if you jump around. And I want to hear from you guys, but I'll tell you my opinions and sort of what I said to this student. Jay just sent a message in the chat. I'll read for him. Jay says, I agree with Hiroe. In the middle part, they talked more about language, but later they talked about freedom. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'll share you my opinion about that in a second. What else did we notice? Anybody else? How about what were descriptive details you remember? Just some examples of descriptive writing that this student did really well. Ahmad.
I think there was some description when he was taken to the prison.
Yeah. Right, absolutely. I mean, again, I don't want to spend too much time with things that are painful or scary. But again, I just do want to say, like this part, it was almost dark. It was difficult to know if it was daytime or nighttime. It had a bad smell full of rotten. The air was full of viscous moisture. I mean, these two sentences are just, I mean, again, it's just perfect descriptive writing, right? Like you can see it, you can smell it, you can almost feel it, you know, and that's another thing I'd say, Ahmad, I'm keep thinking about your question. We're going to see examples of descriptive writing in the third person, but something happens in our brain, I swear, when it's first person, the descriptive writing, I think we feel it even deeper. Do you know what I mean? Like when the student is saying, I went to this place and it somehow feels even more personal. You know, it feels very, very personal. Absolutely. So the descriptive writing about what the prison was like. What else? Either descriptions or narrative. Yeah, you guys can talk or put it in the chat.
Yeah, and also his observation about the other prisoners was dramatic.
Would you say that's descriptive or narrative?
Descriptive.
Yeah, okay. And again, what this student did really well is they did a great job connecting descriptive writing with the narrative writing, right? Because I'm going to just say some things that he did narrative-wise was he explained the process of helping prisoners, right? That was a lot. Like he basically said, what did we have to do? Like, how did we do that, right? Find a guard, give the guard money, help the prisoners, families. I mean, we got a lot of great narrative writing in that essay about what this person did to help those people. And part of those narratives were describing, you know, what, especially like Hiro and Ahmad were saying, okay, here's what the prisoners looked like. Here's what it felt like. Here's what it smelled like in that context. Yeah, absolutely. What else?
I have something to add.
Go, please.
So, yeah, the author says about freedom, but not just regular freedom. He says about the freedom of particular nation, Syria, yeah? And he also talk about sacrifice. There is no freedom without sacrifice. Ooh. And also, there is a good examples, metaphoric forms like phoenix, also ants, birds. It's very descriptive.
Yes. Again, Natasha, you can. You're like Ahmad. You could give this student my comments because when I wrote back to this student and they asked for feedback, that image, and I'll just read it because I think it's so beautiful and such great writing. This part. On one of the days I saw through the window of the dormitory a bird flying in the sky. I felt that I'm so jealous of him because it was free to go any place it wants while I was stuck in this miserable jail. That pushed me to think about all creatures of God, such as ants, and how they are free to be inside or outside the fence of the jail anytime they want. Since that time, I fed the birds and the ants where they assisted me to get out of my cocoon, sadness, and depression. Now, I'll just say there's grammar. Let's just be honest. There's grammar mistakes, but forget about that. This is absolutely perfect theme writing. This is what we're doing in this class, right? We're talking about symbols, images, literature. And in this first essay, we're connecting them to our personal life. And this is exactly like the salmon in the map of lost things, right? Like this is a perfect example of the writers making a connection to the natural world and telling a story. And we understand by the way that the author writes about it, they're sharing something about their feelings, their beliefs, their heart, right? Good. Hiro is saying, Natasha, great points. I agree. Jay's got some more comments I want to read. So Jay was saying, I agree with Hiro. In the middle part, they talked about language, but later they talked about freedom. And then with the narrative, I felt like he explained how he himself experienced the situation and then related it to how he helped others as part of their mission. Again, I just want to copy and paste Jay's comment into the PowerPoint because I think that's a great explanation. Again, like Ahmad was saying about when you do this nonlinear thing, when you tell part of the story, then you connect back to the other part of the story, you get this feeling that Jay just described perfectly, right? I'm going to make the text a little smaller here. So again, this was from Jay. with the narrative, I felt like he explained how he himself experienced the situation and then related it to how he helped others as part of their mission. And of course, again, going back to theme, what was that mission? Freedom, right? Freedom, freedom. And I saw one other comment I want to share from Hadi. I think the important part of this homework is choose an event in our life connected with our prompt. Hadi, I think, is still thinking about what narrative do we choose and how does that connect to a theme? Absolutely, Hadi, absolutely. And I'll get to read your essay, your first draft soon, and I'll tell you what I think. What else? What else about this essay? There's so much going on. Here's my question for you. Oh, I have a question. I'll just ask it. This part about the phoenix at the end. Talk to me about this. What do you guys think about this, about the phoenix?
I think it's more of the comparison between the two situations.
Okay. What else? And if you don't have strong feelings, let me ask this. Does this belong in this paper?
I'm not sure.
That's a great answer. Why? and if the answer is yes, why? If the answer is no, why? If the answer is I'm not sure, why? Say a little bit more.
Sometimes I do often, and we attach to each incident so much with emotion, and we get lost while we are writing and put the stuff. And I'm not sure if this directly has something to do with the language and freedom to the main theme.
Yep. Good. I won't tell you if I agree or not yet, but I will before we finish class. Ahmad, what do you think?
I think we can, it can be connected, but not in this way.
Go on.
I think it can be connected different way to the story. Here, it creates a confusion for the reader, why it's here, why it compares everything.
I agree with that. I do agree that the structure, where it comes in the story it does not feel as connected to the narrative just from where it is in the structure. I agree with that. How about anybody else? Jay, you want to type something, or Natalia, if anyone is still there and wants to talk? I'm curious what some of the other talkative students think.
Maybe it could have been a little bit more concentrated and put it in the introduction at the beginning.
And Jay just typed, I feel like the writer wanted to tell the readers that the Syrians can gain their freedom. Good. Jay's doing a good job explaining the impact of this story, what it does to the reader. I agree. It's clear that the phoenix is clearly connected to the theme, but is it connected to the narrative? Do you know what I mean? That's the question. That's the question. Anybody else want to get in here before I tell you my opinion?
Oh, in here, I guess Professor, he mentioned that how one good movement is changed to the bad situation, like how the Syrian movement for democracy changed to a bad situation by a totalitarian power government, and it shows the a result of a movement, and which it's a kind of result that the movement is not yet finished and it will be continued. It's like,
yes, I love that. Yeah, I love that. I'm going to add, I was also going to add, as Fada was talking, I was thinking the phoenix, for me, the phoenix is a symbol of what? Transformation. Now, like Fada was saying, if the idea is to say this process is still happening, we're still trying to find out what will happen. Will Syria transform or not transform? I agree, that is an important idea. And I do think transformation is a little bit of a different theme than freedom. Now, both are very strong, and I don't think they fight each other, but they are two kind of different things. And I think, like Ahmad was saying, remember, the way I taught this is usually the theme is introduced at the beginning and you connect back to it at the end. So the thing is, just like in a research paper, just like in a paper you write for 340, you don't introduce new data, new research in the conclusion. And in the same way, you don't usually introduce a new theme, transformation, the phoenix, at the end of an essay. Now, the author did a good job connecting this back to freedom, connecting to the phoenix, to transformation, to freedom. But again, you see how in a paper this short, you can't, as soon as you have too many ideas, it does start to feel a little bit less clear to the reader. And again, that's not right or wrong or good or bad. It's just something to be aware of with this type of writing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
The other thing that I'd add is, so here's what I'll just tell you what I said to this student. When I wrote to the student, I put a little note here in the document, and I basically did this. And again, I'm doing everything in track changes, right? You never have to keep anything I tell you, but I just sort of, I moved this down to a new page, and I just said, this is amazing writing. Keep it forever, but it shouldn't be in this essay. Right? Like, and I said, maybe this could be a poem. When we start writing poems in 2 weeks, this could be a poem, right? This could be another short story. This could be something else. But to me, this is an example of why we talk about writing as a process, because this thing that this student just wrote, like I said, keep it forever, right? But it doesn't really belong in this essay because this is a different type of writing. This is a different type of genre. I think that the other image of the bird in the prison window is much more powerful for this specific story than this phoenix image. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, the other thing I'll say is, as you learn about writing as a process, Fada, I'm muting you, it's not personal. As I talk about writing as a process, if you look at this final sentence of this paragraph though, because Syrian peaceful revolution wants to return their dignity and their freedom, words are the lonely mean to keep me and my stories alive. That sentence should be in the essay though. That sentence is amazing. That sentence is kind of like a thesis statement, and you could keep just that sentence in this essay at the end, but get rid of the phoenix metaphor. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, I don't know, because, you know, it's only 8 weeks. I know a lot of you very well, but I don't know what your writing process is like. I don't know if, you know, when I teach, like when I was teaching composition at UC Davis, oftentimes American high school students are very nervous. They're like, oh my God, I can't delete a whole paragraph. How could I get rid of that whole paragraph? And the idea is, with writing as a process, paragraphs come and go. Do you know what I mean? Like, the ideas remain, but the things move, right? Paragraphs move, and that's something why I try to teach this class with you guys, is that you get to revise and resubmit, is because that process of moving things around, doing things that feel scary, making big changes, it's important to test how much can you do. Because again, I'm thinking of Ahmad. I know Ahmad wants to go to university or get a graduate degree. When you're writing 25-page research papers, oh my God, things move all the time. You know, so the more you get used to cutting, moving, copy, pasting, taking an idea, but getting rid of the paragraph, it's just something really, really helpful to help you practice. And it's not something that we talk about a lot, and not just for you guys, right? American students, we don't do a good job of teaching this to American students either. Jay's got a comment in the chat I want to read, and then I see Hiro's hand is raised as well. And then I want to make sure I finish and tell you what I want you to do for next week, because we got 15 minutes. So I feel like the writer wanted to tell the readers that the Syrians can gain their freedom. I think he could put that part towards the end, wherein he was explaining how they helped others. So again, just some suggestion, maybe keep that sentence about freedom and the constant fight, like Fada was saying, the battle continues. Keep that idea when you're talking about the narrative, where you're explaining how you guys helped other people, right? How you helped prisoners, and how you helped prisoners' families, and all that kind of thing too. Thank you, Jay, as always. Jay always keeps the chat fresh in the chat. Hiro, what's going on? What you got?
Just what I've been noticing it is, while I'm writing essays, is important to read on essay as if I am a reader, and to keep the flow. So like sometimes it's the important thing, like this story in the Phoenix, but maybe it doesn't belong to a story. So I just notice only if I read my essay as a third person.
Love it. And that's a hard skill, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a hard skill. And that's why, again, I have a very conflicted feeling about peer review. I think it's a good idea, but sometimes the execution is really tricky. So I was trying to do that today, right? I think it's easier when you read another student's paper. I think reading other students' papers is always very helpful because then you are the reader, like Hiro was saying, you are in the third person, right? And it's harder to do this for ourselves. But I think the more we see student examples, the more we see the essays that I posted in Canada, the more examples we see, the easier it becomes to put on your kind of reader costume. You know, okay, now I'm in reader mode, and then I take my jacket off, and now I'm in writer mode. And that's a lifelong process, just like we talked about in the first week or two. That's a lifelong process, yeah. So thank you, Hiroe, I totally agree. And like Hiroe knows, I love reading, and I think reading is a very valuable skill that we don't, again, in high school in the US, you guys, it's not just us. We don't talk about it enough. We don't talk about it enough. Natasha, you got your hand up? What's up?
Yes, may I not agree with you? I like this example about Phoenix,
Okay.
because in the beginning, the author says that freedom without sacrifice is nothing,
Yeah.
like in his story. And the Phoenix is it's a sacrifice, like he
Yeah.
dies.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe not in the summary, maybe in the middle he can introduce this some story about the Phoenix, but I like it.
I love it. That's great. And again, everything is subjective here, right? Like another teacher in our ESL department might say, oh my God, the Phoenix is the best thing about this story. Keep the Phoenix and get rid of other stuff. That's all good. That's all good. But even so, again, I'm not disagreeing with Natasha. What I will say, and I hope you agree, Natasha, is if you say the focus of this essay is freedom and sacrifice, then I would want the author to make that more clear and explicit and happen more often from beginning, middle, and end of this narrative, instead of just one idea about sacrifice at the beginning and then a story about the Phoenix at the end. And so, but I'm suggesting that this author continues to focus on language, freedom and language, and how people use language to fight for their freedom instead of freedom and sacrifice. And in an essay that's only 4 pages, it's really hard to do freedom and language together and freedom and sacrifice together because the theme starts to feel less clear. Does that make sense, Natasha?
Yes, right now I am agree. Yes.
Okay. And like I said, Natasha, when it's Professor if Professor Natasha said focus on freedom and sacrifice, that is a choice that makes total sense. All I want is to help empower you guys to make those choices. Do you know what I mean? And if this student is like, you know what, yeah, I want to write about the Phoenix, great, write about the Phoenix, but know that you're making that choice and then make the choices that support that being really clear. Do you know what I'm saying? Yes, Usama, what you got? And then I wanna wrap up and talk about what's next.
I would like to speak about the complexities and difficulties between writing about the reality and the facts, literalism and the literature. It is a very complicated relationship.
It is.
How to transfer literally to the reader the same feeling of the facts. This is not an easy job. It causes a lot of difficult feeling.
Yes.
Lot of complexities. Yes.
Yes. And I agree, Usama. And Usama asked how to do it. I would say practice, patience, kindness, love. You know what I mean? Like there is no other. It's like I told you guys, there is no way to peace. Peace is the way. Writing is one of those things that it never ends. You know what I mean? Like there's no, and well, for this type of writing, Usama, right? A research paper, saying, we can teach you the math equation to write a college research paper, right? But this type of writing, not as much. Can you guys still hear me? Ooh, you're back. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? That was fun.
Problem.
You all froze for a second. You are breaking up though. Here we're saying I'm breaking up. Okay, I'm gonna say stay with me for a few minutes. We'll see Oh, good. That really did help now, actually. I can see Usama's face moving. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you what I want you to do for next week to get ready for poetry. And again, Usama is exactly correct that this is a combination of personal writing and art and literature, and that is hard, right? And I think we know narrative writing, and it's why I like to start with narrative writing, because when we get to poetry next week, it's all art, you know what I mean? Like, it's all magic, and we just get to sort of talk about it. And I'm gonna dare to try to turn on my video and see if that works. Do I have robot voice? Am I okay? Hiraway gives a thumbs up, and I trust Hiraway. Okay, let me show you what I want you to do for next week, and we'll get out of here in 5 minutes. I'm gonna be risky and share my screen again. So here's what I want you to do. I'll show you where this lives in Canvas. I want you to read or watch The River Speaks, chapter 1. I already made a video for this. I'll show you where it lives. Then I want you to read The River Speaks, chapter 2, if you can. That is only a PDF. I did not make a video for that one. And then here's what I really want you to do. I don't have this as an assignment in Canvas for points yet. I might, but I want you to find an English translation of a poem from your first language and bring it to our class next week.
You want us to translate it to all?
No, well, Usama, if you want to translate the poem yourself, you get 100 extra points. That's fine. But all I want is, it can be some other translation. Usama says, no, oh my God, no. No, and if you need help with one of these, email me and I can find a poem in your first language, and I can help you if you need to. But I'd really like you to try. I'm thinking also of Jay, like, for people who have, like in the Philippines, they have lots of different languages. If you want to choose Tagalog, or if you have one in one of the other languages that you speak, that's fine too. But does this make sense? I don't think we need to make this for points. Can we? I think you are all good enough students. Can we just bring one to Canvas instead of making you submit it in Canvas? Hiraway says yes, and Ahmad says yes. So, and then let me show you in Canvas where all this lives, just like usual. If you go to our home page, and you click course materials, right at the very beginning, The River Speaks is our poetry book. There's chapter 1, the PDF, and here's my video that I made where I read through and talk about some of the ideas, and here's chapter 2, okay? So again, for people who aren't here and are watching this video, just click homepage, course materials, PDFs, audio, etc. The River Speaks, here's the header, the poetry book. Chapter 1 is the PDF. Chapter 2 is the PDF, and just read and bring a poem to class, and then you'll see Jeff get really happy, because we're going to talk about poetry for 3 or 4 weeks. So I'm very excited. Questions?
No questions, thank you.
Cool. I have one question. Was it helpful to see student writing like this?
Yes.
Yes.
100% yes.
Good. Fada says yes. Good. And again, so thank you to the people who emailed me and asked me for feedback early, because it meant that I got to see some of your essays early. And that means that I could talk to all of you as a class about some of the things that I saw in our student class writing. And as you all know, that's the way I like to teach. I like to teach You guys. I like to teach the people who are actually in the room with us. Jay is saying, yes, it was very helpful with 3 exclamation points. So I'll take that as a big win from Jay. Yes. Usama, last comment so that we can get out the door on time and let Dean Hicks get out of here. What's up, Usama?
When the essay due, when we when to submit the second.
Oh, great question. Thank you for the reminder. I will grade your essays that you submitted today as soon as possible. And then remember, you have 1 week from my first grade and revision. So sometimes I can get them all done in 1 day. Sometimes some people might have theirs graded a little earlier. So it's 1 week from the day you get the grade and my comments. Make sense?
Sure.
And if that doesn't make sense, or if you're still confused about it, again, you know, this class is just spectacular. I'm not worried about it. What I don't want is people send me a second draft on the day of the final exam. That's what I don't want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions? Oh my God, 2 whole minutes early. Get out of here.
Thank you so much, Professor Jeff and everyone.
I'll see you guys next week.
Hey, Jeff, you want to wait a sec?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to put, yes, absolutely.
You don't have to. I just thought I'd ask. If students need to talk to you, I can do it later. You did great.
I want to talk to you, Diane.
Okay.
Fada, I'm going to put you in a breakout room.
No, Professor, it's okay. Well, I will come in the meeting, office hours.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye, Usama.
Bye.
Hadi, and I saw your message. I just saw your message in the chat, and I'll get back. Did you already send me an email, Hadi? Okay, I'll reply to you at least, if not tonight, then tomorrow morning during office hours. Usama, thank you for everything.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Hey, hi, how are you doing?
It's good to see you.
It's good, and it's challenging, but you did well. Yeah, at first I wrote you a quick email, and then I thought, well, if they all log off, I'll at least chat with you so that you could feel like you can walk away feeling relaxed, you know?
Yeah.
So amazing essays, I will say that, you know? I realized the first one had more errors and things, but they still did a really fine job. So you could see that level of writing and thinking and pulling it all together. So yes. I thought that was an excellent choice. And then I found myself digging through what the difference is between a hyphen and a dash. So if you'd like to know about that.
I'd love to learn. I always love to learn anything.
Well, and that's because I used to teach the structure of grammar in English. Yeah. And so because I'm teaching native speakers, I was always teaching them like different strategies. So it's something I taught a lot. Okay. There is a difference. Okay. A hyphen is just one little thing. Yeah. A dash is 2 hyphens. Okay, so let's start there. A hyphen is word like anxiety ridden. Put the hyphen in, okay? Mother-in-law, those are hyphens. Dash is always 2, and so when you write the word you're typing, you know, you type whatever it is, don't put a space. If you put 2 hyphens and then don't put a space, and when you get to that end of that word and you hit the space bar, it'll automatically change to 1 line bigger, longer.
It does. I notice it gets elongated for sure.
But it's got to be 2, and there has to be no spaces.
Huh.
And it's used in a more for impact, effect, I mean, you know these, so I apologize if I'm offensive. What, like if you're putting a list of something in the middle of a sentence and you really want to separate it, you know, if you put it at the end of a sentence, you know, it's going to bring more emphasis. I would say, for instance, you can usually use a dash where you could use a comma, but you would use a dash when you want emphasis. Comma is kind of the benign, yes, here it is, you know, and you can still get emphasis based on how short or long the word phrasing is and such. But when it is put at the end and then you have the dash, it's more to be kind of poignant.